it should change the world to the better, right? So starting to mitigate the environmental changes, and that are making a lot of problems, in our food supply, in for our normal way of life. But changing the world is more about changing our lives. That we should move from the fossil-based energies to something that science allowed us to explore more the more less CO2 intensive technologies. So the green transition is a word with a lot of fuzz recently, right? But um, it's we know that we have to do this, right? There is a significant change of the environment around us, and we have to do something about it. But what? As every transition, it is a big uh, source of controversy. So, but this is not the first big transition for it is for us, but it's not for the humanity. In the past 100 years, we have big changes, and almost every generation is dealing with some sort of big change in their lives or in how they are doing their jobs, and also on the job market and just in the lifestyle in general. So we know that we have to do something about the environment, and that how we live currently, it's not sustainable anymore. So we have to do it. And of course, people are not happy about it because we don't want to change the life that is currently happening around us and how we are living it, just because we are getting used to it. And some changes in our routine bring some more hustle that we have to deal with every day. It took quite a long time, to build the infrastructure, for the industrial revolution. We need to change our world completely, to build factories, to build the housing for the people, for the workers, to transit from farming, to industrial era. And similar, it was for the oil age. Very similar. We have to build roads, we have to dig for oil to produce billions of kilometers of asphalt, gas stations, the whole infrastructure. It takes about 100 years to do this, and now we are trying to change this. And of course, this will not happen overnight, but if we start doing this now, it will take decades. But better to start it as soon as possible, to have an impact still when it still counts. So, of course, changing the whole world, how we extract energy for our way of life, is associated with a lot of materials, very energy intensive, kind of revolutionary thing happening. So, but undoubtedly, the extraction of many new minerals, many new materials, is directly associated with the big release of CO2. So the topic is kind of controversial, right? To save on CO2, we first have to dig for something that will produce a lot of CO2. So yes, we should do this very smart, right? So what kind of minerals? Of course, if we want to change from oil to electricity, copper, for building a more resilient electrical grid, copper will be the first thing that we will need, and we will need a lot of copper. So estimations are like almost as much of copper as we dig up to now in the whole history of the last 5,000 years that we are doing this. So this is just to build a supply lines, equivalent of building the roads, right, for the cars. So next one would be, of course, materials for producing the electricity from some renewable sources, like enormous amount of magnets for the wind turbines. So enormous amount of aluminum and steel just for the structural components of the devices that will help us in the long term reducing the CO2 in the environment, to make our current way of life more sustainable in the long term. Nobody knows yet, right? So We know how to solve this theoretically and on a small scale, but just the sheer magnitude of the amount of people in this world, right? And on the amount of energy that we need for everyday's life, it's kind of frightening. And yes, we have to find something that is enough abundant and enough available for us, that we can implement these solutions. For instance, in the 70s, people said that, well, harvesting sun for the energy in solar cells will never work out, right? So with the technology of the from the year 1970, right? But this is an engineering problem, right? The constant optimization for the from gallium arsenide to the silicon, and then like to the cheapest energy less intensive polycrystalline silicon, we can afford finally that like half of the roofs of Europe are covered with the solar cells. Right? So have in mind that something that seems completely impossible because of the amount of material we need is just an engineering problem. So it's a rewarding job, and it's about your future, right? So you don't want to work in the office. You want to be outside in the field. You want to make change in the world. You want to have an impact. Well, maybe it will not be like a revolutionary and turning the world upside down, but the world needs you. Like needs every engineer, any researcher, any scientist that can make a change in the long term to make things more sustainable for you, and that you will live better, and also your colleagues and the other people of the world will live easier and better and, well, more sustainable in the long term.